To meet him now. Sanka Coffee has brought him here tonight all the way from Lawrence, Kansas. Dr. James A. Naismith, the inventor of basketball. Dr. Naismith, how did you happen to invent basketball?
Well, Mr. Heater, it was in the winter of 1891 when I was physical instructor at Springfield College in Massachusetts. We had a real New England blizzard. For days the students couldn't go outdoors, so they began roughhousing in the halls. We tried everything to keep them quiet. We tried playing a modified form of football in the gymnasium, but they got bored with that. Something had to be done. One day I had an idea. I called the boys to the gym, divided them up into teams of 9, and gave them an old soccer ball. I showed them 2 peach baskets I'd nailed up at each end of the gym, and I told them the idea was to throw the ball into the opposing team's peach basket. I blew a whistle, and the first game of basketball began.
And what rules did you have for your new games, Dr. Naismith?
Well, I didn't have enough, and that's where I made my big mistake. The boys began tackling, kicking, and punching in the clinches. They ended up in a free-for-all in the middle of the gym floor. Before I could pull them apart, one boy was knocked out, several of them had black eyes, and one had a dislocated shoulder. It certainly was murder. Well, after that first match, I was afraid they'd kill each other, but they kept nagging me to let them play again. So I made up some more rules. The most important one was that there should be no running with the ball. That stopped tackling and slugging. We tried out the game with those rules, and we didn't have one casualty. We had a fine, clean sport. 10 years later, basketball was being played all over the country. And in 1936, I saw it played for the first time at the Olympic Games. And the whole thing started with a couple of peach baskets I put up in a little gym 48 years ago. I guess it just goes to show what you can do if you have to.
Indeed it does.
I'll say that in 1936, the entire city of Lawrence, Kansas, and other places in Kansas wanted to get Dr. Naismith and his wife to the Berlin Olympics. You would recognize those Olympics by that title. And donations were received and gifts were given, and the K Club at the University of Kansas was the focal point of the idea to get Dr. Naismith to the Olympics, where at last his dream of basketball becoming an official Olympic sport, a 40-year fight, you might say, a 40-year objective, finally realized, and I wanted to make a contribution to it. My budget called for me to live on about 35 cents a day. This can be done if you have to do it, and in those days I could do it. So I wanted, however, to make a contribution to Dr. Naismith's program. So I asked Dr. Naismith if I could do some work for him over to his house, and he said, yes, it so happens I need my grass cut. Well, I hadn't taken a good look at the size of that yard, but I will tell you it's practically an all-day job. I went over and cut the grass, and he gave me 50 cents. Then I gave it right back to him and told him that this is all I could handle in regard to a contribution for his going to the Olympics. He received my $50 as if I had given him $500 or $600. He thought a lot of it, and I did too. I felt good about making myself part of the expedition to the Olympics.